Hey, welcome everyone to this first live Ask Me Anything. And I hope that you all have respected the rule. If you don't have your Christmas sweater, you should disconnect right now. Don't pretend that you have a Christmas sweater. I know that you don't have a Christmas sweater. So go back to your room, take your Christmas sweater, and join us.
But
And so just
Henrik, do we also allow just, let's say, winter sweaters because somebody may not celebrate Christmas, like the winter sweater? Is that
all
also
right, all
okay?
right. So
All
we,
right,
we are quite nice. We're nice.
exactly. Yeah.
So first of all, I will thanks Andy. It's great to have you on board with me. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's the first time we are doing this. I'm excited because I have no clue how this will work. It's all really live. I mean, our performance observability clinics are typically also live, but like ringing phones that you have right now, I'm not sure who's calling you.
I
Maybe it's
have no
somebody
idea.
that has a question, but it's going to be good. And I'm looking forward how this is going to work out. I see questions are coming in, at least on LinkedIn, and I think this is streamed in all other places. But yeah, we'll figure this out. Who do we have? Anybody else invited? Some magic elves, some Santa Claus?
Yes, because it's 2022 and we wanted to be very gentle with you all because you've been so nice with us on 2021. We decided for this Kubernetes special to bring the expertise directly to you. And without naming this group of great, smart people, I'd like to introduce two great person working at Dynatrace and helping us to bring the product to the right spot in the Kubernetes world. Without naming them, I would say first, welcome to Matthew Rader. Hey, Matt.
Hey guys, how are you?
Very good, very
Good.
good.
That's good. I'm sorry I don't have a. So we organized before to get Christmas sweaters, and then I forgot mine. But the admin here in Vienna, she gave me one. It's just that it's an extra, extra, extra large. So do I get any points for that? I don't know. Maybe some.
Okay, so
Anyhow,
that it's the first edition,
it's
so
the
we
first. All right,
tolerate that.
next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Next time. Next time. Yep.
And with Matt, we have another expert that is with us. It's Florian Gagel from the product team. Hi,
Hey
Florian.
guys, great to see you again. Hope you all had great holidays. I also
It was
brought my sweater. It's also a little bit too large. And I
well, maybe this
expected to eat more cookies over Christmas, but I didn't. That's good.
exactly. Wasn't that a clear sign that you have to just eat more cookies and
Yeah,
drink more mulled wine or punch? I guess you didn't
Enterprise
get the memo.
scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enterprise scale, scaling up.
Yeah. Exactly.
awesome.
So, cool.
So I think for this, during this Ask Me Anything, I will just remind everyone that we are live. And if you're using Twitter, if you're using LinkedIn, Twitch, or Facebook or YouTube, if you want to interact with us and drop questions on the live stream video, you can drop a comment, and the comment will be available. And we can show your questions and, of course, take time to answer to your questions. So please, if you have any questions in mind, feel free to drop it. We will take this 1 hour to answer to all of your questions. Of course, only related to Dynatrace, and of course, only related to Kubernetes, because otherwise, out of Kubernetes, my name is not Andreas Grabner. I don't have the expertise, the right set of expertise.
I have to say I lost my expertise a while ago because the product is growing so fast and vast, and that's why it's great to have so many people on the call. But Henrik, can you do me a favor? I want to kick it off with something that I've been wondering, and I want to show you something if that's possible. Can I share my
Of
screen?
course. So you want to. So you ask me gently, please, God of this live stream, give me the access to my
Give me the
screen.
access to my screen, exactly.
All right, I will do. I'm nice
Yeah.
with it.
Because as you said, I'm in the fortunate situation that I have been doing a lot of demos on Dynatrace. And typically when I do demos and people ask me to show them something, I'm very fortunate here that we have our demo environment. For some of you that may know it, it's our demo live environment where we do most of our public demos. Our colleagues in sales engineering use it, our partners are using it. And I'm not an expert in Kubernetes at all, but what I love to show is, once you have installed the Dynatrace One Agent Operator, you automatically get access to all the data that we automatically collect from your Kubernetes clusters. So here, obviously, you get a nice overview. I think one question that came in from, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Dane Aguiar from Brazil. He was asking, can Dynatrace not only instrument Kubernetes, but also OpenShift? So yes, it's all here. As you can see here, we have 6 Kubernetes clusters. And OpenShift is, I guess, just in the same realm as all the other Kubernetes variants that we support. So you get your full overview of your cluster, your workloads, your pods, your memory usage. We are collecting and pulling in all of the Kubernetes events through the APIs. Also, what we've been doing for a while now, and I think for some of us, it's probably still fresh on our minds, is a security vulnerability detection. Hopefully not many of you have been negatively impacted by Log4Shell, but this is definitely something we completely do automatically. I think you, Dani, if I look at your question that came a little earlier before the stream started, you were also asking specific support for OpenShift. And I was reminded in the preparation of this call that we have an extension that you can download on the hub. So I did a performance clinic a couple of weeks ago on extensions, and the extension for OpenShift can be installed through the Dynatrace Hub. And one of the things it, for instance, installs and gives you the OpenShift control plane dashboard. So if I click on this one now, right, automatically you get the dashboard, but also all the data that the control plane is exposing, right? And you can see here the number of ready pods, for instance. You can see over time, if I go to a little larger time frame, maybe last 72 hours, then you get to see all the additional metrics that we're collecting from the control plane. I guess you are probably more an OpenShift expert than I am, but this data, having it here fully automatically, also being analyzed by Dynatrace, you can then obviously with the data, all of what you like, create your custom dashboards, create your alerts. I think there's also some links here to different documentation, and we can obviously always go back to our specific Kubernetes cluster dashboard. From here, we can look at the workloads, look at the pods. I think this is kind of like beautiful to show because everything works just out of the box with Dynatrace, or at least. And Henrik, this is where I kind of want to go back to you a little bit, because for me, this is always easy to make these demos. Everything looks so smooth. And then people always ask, yeah, but this is just a demo environment, and you probably have a lot of people that are maintaining it, and it's not as easy as it actually looks like. So my question now is kind of the question that I always receive. How easy is it for real? I mean, is it as easy as claim, or do you, Henrik, take the challenge of instrumenting a Kubernetes cluster live now in this session and show us?
I think I just received a call, so no. So to be just, of course, I'd love to answer to your questions and show you how to proceed. So for that, let me share my screen as well. And up. So now it's going to be the echo effect. Sorry about this. And here it is. So here I have a Dynatrace tenant. In my case, it's a dev tenant, but don't worry, it's the same thing for production. In fact, it's going to be even better for you. It's going to be even probably more stable than our dev tenant. So I have a cluster that I have prepared with some. Oh, I need to. You're seeing the wrong terminal here. Oh, here it is. So how to deploy a cluster? So if you are in Dynatrace, you simply have to go to deploy Dynatrace, which is in the manage section here. And once you are in deploy Dynatrace, there is obviously a section where you can say, I want to install Dynatrace. And here, in my case, I want to set up the start installation, and yeah. I will select, because it's a Kubernetes cluster, I can even select a Kubernetes cluster. In your case, you are answering about OpenShift. You can also select it, and it will, of course, get the right installation allotted to your version of Kubernetes, and same thing for the other stuff. So in my case, it's pure Kubernetes, so I'm going to select it, and then it will walk through the installation. So I will need to create a cluster name. So I will click it. I will name it ask me anything, Kubernetes, then I need some pass token and API token. So either you already have built them in advance, or you can basically let the installation process create those tokens for you. So here it is. And as you can see, there is a deployment, there's a script, deployment script that is populated through this. In my case, I'm using JKE. So I will enable this volume storage. So this is only required in case of JKE, ATOS, and others. So let me enable this one. And then once you have this, I simply need to copy this with all the predefined stuff and go back to my terminal where I have kubectl and everything deployed. So let me just do it clear so it will be easier for you to see. And I'm going to drop that script. Cluster already exists. Yeah, that makes sense because I already had this. So I need to put the previous name that I had. It was Online Boutique.
That's the great thing about, and this is now people, you can see this is really live. If you see this and people are struggling through a live demo because they didn't clean up properly before, that's what happens. And now we have 2 product managers on the call as well who see how a user that is trying to perform an amazing online demo is...
We're here to learn what could go wrong, but we're also here to criticize Henrik.
Yeah, of course. No, that's how it should be.
So if you already have a Kubernetes cluster, then in my case, it's not visible. But if I put on the last 72 hours, you will see I have the Online Boutique available, which is here. So I simply have to go to the settings of this cluster. And I have the honor to enable this one back. So we'll enable this one. And normally everything should go back to normal. If I go back to 30 minutes, I need to populate some stuff, but it's already been there. But in my case, it's very particular. I had already the Online Boutique instrumented, so I just deleted just before this Ask Me Anything. But once you have this connections done, I'm just going to check if the API has not been changed. So I'm going to go to the settings, and you have the ability to test the connections.
What if you just delete it and just create it from scratch, maybe? Because then, and this is again, this is why this is live, and life is fun, because now there's 3 people watching Henrik struggle.
Yeah, I think he could delete it.
I think so too.
That's the right button, Henrik, on the top corner on the right. If you go to the defaults. I think
if an overlay, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which one?
On the defaults, I think. I can't really see it. There's the overlay, yeah.
You're about to use default for the settings, no.
Can't you go to the settings, just in the regular settings, and then delete it?
This is to configure your connections. It's going to be here directly in settings. So you go here, and in the settings, obviously, I know I have another idea. Because I have another live tenant. So let me do this with my live tenant instead of our. Let me just do this. I'm just going to grab the URL of my live tenant, and I will back to you shortly.
Of course. And while this is happening, Matt and Florian, what do we learn from this?
Well, I think we learned that if you already have a cluster with the same name as the one you're creating, that it's going to give you an error and say you've already got that cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think here it's not about the cluster, it's actually about the endpoint, about the IP address of your cluster. So that's what's going wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what he names it, it doesn't matter. He's got the same endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. And there's a couple of other questions that are coming in. Kamal, maybe I'm just answering these while they come in. I want to monitor SSO application successful logins, failed login, unauthorized logins, and other SSO KPIs like AppTech score using Dynatrace Manage. Please explain which way is better, agent-based, synthetic, or RAM. It's a little out of the scope of the Kubernetes topic we have today, but because Henrik is still needing probably a little bit of time, I will try to answer this.
No, that's fine. I'm already have my cluster.
I still want to answer it. I still want to quickly answer it. My answer would be you should install the agent, because the agent gives you real user monitoring, which means you really know how many requests, in your case, logins are successful or unauthorized, right, or fail for other reasons. Synthetic would obviously give you availability, because synthetic will, this is why I would combine it in your case, real user monitoring with synthetic monitoring. Synthetic gives you a clear indication when is your service available from certain points in the world. You would then detect any things with DNS issues or any other network related issues from the outside. Real user monitoring really gives you an indication how your real users are perceiving the performance and application user experience. And
all right, so should I let's retry. So second take. Get back to the past. Yep. Take one. All right, so here I have now a beautiful live tenant, a beautiful one. So let me do the same naming. So we go back to what we did before. So in this cluster, I know that in this environment, I don't have any connections with this one. Energy key, same thing. I copy this one and I go back to my terminal and I do this.
So that means this is an empty, you had a kind of, what was installed on the cluster? It's an empty GK, or was something installed on it?
No, though. I already installed the hip to shop in that cluster. And I have the Prometheus operator, I think, that is also running there. So as you can see, there's a webhook here now. So the installation has slightly changed from the release, the previous release. And I think that could be also a good question if someone is interested to see the difference between our current operator and the previous ones. But at the end, why do we make some changes? Yeah, to provide more values, to collect more events, more things. So it makes more sense for you guys. All right, so now the cluster has been there, adding cluster, done. So let's go to the show deployment status to see what is going on. All right.
So can you explain to me just quickly, maybe Matt or Florian, you want to chime in? So what did really just happen when we install the one agent operator?
Sure. So what just happened was that the operator created a custom resource definition. And the custom resource is for a couple of things. So you can see them. He just listed all of the different things that are in that namespace. Or actually, if you look in the namespace and you list the things that are being created. So basically, it's creating a daemon set that is going to monitor the nodes. And then it's also creating, so those are the daemon sets there, all of one agents. It's creating the operator itself, and then an active gate, which does a couple of things. One, it monitors your Kubernetes API, but it can do other things too. It can also route metric traffic. It can monitor other APIs if you want to. It can also scrape Prometheus endpoints. So active gates are sort of the, as I've learned in German, it's the Wunderwusi, the anything animal. It does a lot of different things. And then there's this webhook thing. Webhooks are, you know, a lot of people know what webhooks are. They respond to events, and basically there's a mutating webhook that fires before pods are created. And so the mutating webhook hits our webhook pod and asks our webhook pod, do you want me to change the definition of this pod? And that webhook pod says, yeah, I do. Put in a code module and agent so that the Dynatrace agent is running inside of those pods so that your application can report metrics, traces, and logs.
And the custom object that we are adding is the Dynacube. So I think you already have been familiar to that if you've been using our operator in a couple of months ago. So this is the Dynacube, and the Dynacube is basically the connections to your Dynatrace tenant. And if you can add several Dynacube, by the way, if you want to push data to several Dynatrace tenants, that is obviously possible by creating several Dynacubes CRDs.
Yeah. That's actually that's a new feature. That's something that we just added, where you can send metrics you could send host metrics and app metrics to Dynatrace environment A with one Dynacube, and then maybe other metrics from a different namespace for a different functional group, maybe in your company, to a different Dynatrace environment if they have a different one. That's a nice feature that a lot of enterprises have been asking for.
Really cool. So, because I was just wondering for it, and now it makes a lot of sense, because you have different teams that are responsible for different parts of the cluster or different layers of your architecture.
That's right.
Hey, Henrik, I just see that a question came in. What is the current version you're using of the operator? Is this 0.3.0?
It is the official 0.3.0 completely, yes.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then another one that I see here, is there a limit to adding the Kubernetes cluster to the Dynatrace SaaS tenant? I guess the number. Is the limit to adding the Dynatrace cluster to the SaaS tenant? Or is the question, I'm not sure if it's the number of clusters, or it might be the size of the cluster. Are there any limitations, Florian or Matt, that you're aware of?
I'm going to let Florian, if you know, what the upper limits are roundabout. I know we've done some testing there, but I don't remember the exact figures.
Yeah, I don't have it at my head right now, but I think Andy, you're correct. So it's not about the clusters; it's actually about how many pods you monitor over all clusters. So I think there's currently a limit in place in terms of clusters, but it's actually more about the pods. So whenever you reach out to our support and you have just many clusters with not too many pods, we will find a solution to increase this artificial limiter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what
that's
we did for some customers.
Sort of a safety net, right? I've seen some support tickets where customers ask for that limit to be raised, and we ask a few questions and then bump it. But
so it's just a sizing exercise on our end, and basically then for folks that might be new to Dynatrace, where we have two deployment models. One would be SaaS, where we host our Dynatrace cluster in the cloud, and obviously we work with you to make sure that we are sizing it properly to your needs. But then there's also the second option, which is Dynatrace managed. You run the cluster on your hardware, and then depending on the size of the environment, and that spans from your Kubernetes environments, but also all the other environments that you may monitor, it's just a sizing exercise. Perfect. Okay. Henrik.
I just realized, because I wanted to make some traffic, because here I deployed my my fresh new operator. I'm super happy about it, but my application for some reason is not running. But I have a trick for that. Don't worry, I have a trick for this, because I have request and limits, and that it could be an episode for request and limits. So the request and limits are not well defined, and for some reason my service cards has been killed, and that blocks the startup of the Ipta shop. So that's just a reminder. So if you play around with Kubernetes, make sure to configure properly your settings. Don't improvise in production. And of course, Dynatrace will help you to detect those issues if you have issues related to Kubernetes settings, of course.
Don't you have an episode on is it observable for that?
I have an episode about this, and the episode, in fact, is just to remind you. So this is the link to the channel. So if you have never seen Is It Observable, small promotion about it. I did two episodes. One is just how to collect metrics from a Kubernetes cluster with using Prometheus. But then we did, just before Christmas, that was a Christmas present from Is It Observable. We had a dedicated episode with Akamas. So if people is not aware of what is Akamas is a solution that will auto-tune platforms based with utilizing machine learning and AI. And in this episode, we basically reconfigured the Hipster shop to figure out the right request and limits for the entire cluster. And if you want to learn about request and limits, this episode will tell you more about that.
I think that's also a good time to promote the talk that Matt and I will be having at Perform. So we're going to talk a lot about limits and how Dynatrace can help with figuring out the right sizing. So come over to us and see us in Perform breakout sessions.
And also, I think, Andy, you have interesting sessions as well.
You mean at Perform? Maybe. I hope so, at least. Yeah, definitely. I think there's 3 sessions we have at Perform. One is the hot day, the hands-on training day, where we talk about SLO-driven engineering, where we talk about how we can do release engineering properly, enforcing SLOs from dev all the way into ops. That's one thing, hands-on training day. So for those folks that are still contemplating whether you want to join our now fully virtual conference, Monday and Tuesday are hands-on training days. So a lot of sessions. Second one, I'm doing a session with Mike Kobush from NAIC, where he's showing us how he's using Dynatrace in his load testing environments and how he's using SLOs to automatically evaluate the quality. And I think there was one question I saw earlier before we started on load testing and performance testing. So you should probably check this one out. And the last one that I'm really excited about, we have Kelsey Hightower on main stage. And I will grill him a little bit on Kubernetes, why he thinks Kubernetes is so cool. And is it so cool? And why is it so cool? And what does it do? And what are also the downsides? So I want to actually know a little bit about, from him, get some questions answered that I have.
From my end, I would have we have several hot days, and I'm doing one hot day more on cloud advanced observability. So if you want to know how to scrap metric from Prometheus, if you want to know how to collect logs utilizing Dynatrace, or not even with Dynatrace, using just FluentD or other stuff, we will do a lot of exercises with utilizing FluentD. So that's the hot day session, and then otherwise we have one track about promoting is it observable. So we will do how to observe an ingress controller utilizing logs and metrics. And then we have another track more related to SREs. So we have a story with Kroger that will share their experience. So if you want to learn more, don't forget to register to Perform. There will be a lot of great talk for this year.
Mm-hmm. Hey, there's another question that just came in. Do we have any load balancer, or maybe you can probably put it, which supports the created cluster in Dynatrace?
So could you explain us what you are referring to with load balancer? Are you want to send it? I'm not sure to fully understand the question. So could you maybe rephrase the question?
I guess it's about whether we load balance the traffic that gets sent to Dynatrace. I would assume that's what it is. Or are you more talking about whether we support load balancers that you have in your Kubernetes clusters? I think that would be an interesting one. I can see Mike Kobush actually responded earlier with a smile when we mentioned him, that we are doing a session together at Perform. Henrik, I tried to put in a question on LinkedIn because I often get a question asked, but LinkedIn refused to take my comments, probably because they know that I am not supposed to give comments because I'm broadcasting live here. My question was around, can you show me how to ingest Prometheus metrics?
Of course, we can do that. But I will walk through, let me share my screen. So I need to redeploy the Hipster shop, because if the Hipster shop doesn't generate logs, I won't have much things collected. So let me reshare my screen again. Before that, I want to avoid the echo effects, or how we can name it. But let me just do this and re-enable that here. Up. All right, so let's go back to Dynatrace, and now we want to collect Prometheus metrics. So to do this, like I said, I will just slightly change my deployment of my hipster shop. I already have prepared it, so that's not a big deal. I'm just going to slightly change something. I'm going to copy paste it from the other repo. I got it here. And you will see it's going to be very, here it's more issue related to hipster shop, so don't worry. It's not, I'm taking this service and I'm going to redeploy it. All right. So in my repo, I had, I'm going to show you, for this, it's an episode related to Litmus cows that I am preparing. I have two deployment files. This is the one that I was using today. And I have one without no limits, very nice deployment without any constraints. You should not use this one, of course, in your production environment. But so I'm going to deploy the Kubernetes manifest without limits. And that should resolve our problem with our service that is not responding. All right, now if you go to pods, normally in the user shop, whole namespace, we should have all the pods been terminated and recreated without any limits. So in a few seconds, that will be available. I'm just going to get the service IP because I have a load balancer service that exposes the application. So this is the one. So that will help me to test if it's working fine.
So that means now everyone, if you grab that IP, go and try out Hipster Store.
Yeah, so it's not still running, but never mind. So how do you do how do you take advantage of the Prometheus scrapping support that we have? So in this cluster, I'm going to show you, I have deployed the Nginx ingress controller. So if I show you, I have the get SVC on the default namespace. You will see that I have a service called the Nginx controller, which is here. And when you deploy the Nginx controller, you have the options to say, I'd like to enable the Nginx exporter. So by doing this, you can see here I have an extra service here, which is Nginx ingress controller metrics on the port 10.254. So if in this, of course, service will allow me to reach out to another pod. So if I do the same thing, it will on the pod of Nginx, sorry, this one has the metrics. So the first thing that I need when I want to enable the Prometheus support, I have to add annotations to my deployment. But here it's I don't control the Nginx deployment file, so I don't want to add annotation to this because it's been managed by Helm. I will probably create a service that will basically select the pods of Nginx and will ask gently Dynatrace, say, hey, there is some metrics there. Could you grab them? So to add the right annotations, you need obviously few information. You need first the port, which port is exposed Prometheus metrics, and then you need the path. So here in my case, I know it's 10.254, but I'm not sure. I just want to control it. So to do that, what I usually do before configuring it, I just do a port forward of this service. I think I have the command somewhere because I already did it a few minutes ago. Here it is. So here I got my command. Now I have the port forward. So which means if I do on localhost here, so HTTP, and then 10.254, I think it was. So now I can see that we have a couple of metrics that is obviously exposed by this exporter. Keep in mind that Dynatrace currently support Gauge and counters. So if your exporter expose histogram and summary, then those specific summary and histogram metrics won't be collected, because we will only collect the gauge and counter metrics that are exposed from the exporter. So now that I know that the port is correct, what I need to do is to deploy a service. So I already prepared this, and let me grab this one here. So in this service that I'm defining here, I have a typical default Kubernetes service, and here I need to modify it. So here I will say 10.254. So that's my the port. Then I need I can put a name. So here we can say ask me anything, just for the exercise. And now it's not a node exporter, it's the Nginx. Yes. Then I can give a name, whatever, to the port. But here it's a fake service, so I don't care about which service I expose. And then I need the right label selector that will help me to point to the Nginx pods that you just were seeing. So how do I get those label selector? Very simple. I go back to my terminal. Oh, and we were doing a port forward, so I can kill it. And instead of doing a port forward here, I will do describe. It's clunky. Okay, and I will do describe instead. And I don't need port. And I'm just going to specify it's the pod. There it is. Now I have the description of my pod. And you will see that in this pod, there are few labels available. And I need to precise those labels to be able to scrap it. So here you can see app, component controller, Nginx, ingress. I have all those stuff. So I can technically I can grab those labels here and go back to my IDE that was showing you a few seconds ago, and I could basically replace them here. So I put this here, and now I have those. So I can create either a list, or I can put it like this. I think through comma. All right. So now I have the service defined, which is in my Ask Me Anything folder. So if I go back to my terminal and I say Emma, here it is, and now I can do I. I need to create a list instead. I'm sorry. It's the pleasure of life.
It's a pleasure of being here and just watching you do the work and
opening beers while I'm sweating.
Exactly, yeah. By the way, Henrik, I think in the live stream we still have the question from Shridra open, which is kind of overlaying a little bit. I'm not sure if you can.
Wait,
I know you have a lot of windows open. Maybe a lesson learned for one of the next. Ask Me Anythings that we do. Maybe I should also have the capability, then I can help you a little bit.
It should be a map. So I need to create a map instead. So here I have, I think I have an array, got array and expected lab. So here I need to create the map. Not sure. I know how to do this. Give me 2 seconds.
And while you're doing this, Matt and Florian, I'm not sure if you see the other questions that are coming in. Maybe we can tackle some of those in the meantime. One of them is, do we have a policy engine layer in Dynatrace Kubernetes?
So everything's immutable, declarative. So these are all YAML files, and so it works very well with a GitOps pipeline. So so if you have policies that you're trying to enforce, you would do that in your pipeline normally. I don't think we have. I'm not sure. Seems like there's a lot of things we're doing on the AppSec side and different parts of the organization that I'm not in, but I'm not aware of plans there. So that the plan there seems like more of an integration plan.
Okay, perfect. And then I want to say thank you for Dane. Again, I hope I get your name correctly, but he's been answering some questions already that came in on LinkedIn, because one of the questions was, is it possible to manage the Kubernetes nodes using host groups, and would this work with one agent CTL? And then he was Danny was answering that you would do this on the operator side, because the operator has a lot of config parameters, so the YAML parameters, right, where you can control host groups, and I'm not sure what. I mean, you can basically control everything that you would normally be able to control on the one agent, because the operator is rolling out the one agent. And so you can control all of these properties through the operator YAML file, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah, host groups are important. I think almost all of our customers use them at a certain scale. So all of that is supported. I mean, these things are arguments in the YAML, the YAML file.
Perfect. And then I think one of the other questions that was a clarification when we said with the load balancer, the follow-up answer was a shift of loads between the cluster.
I think that there's maybe some confusion, but it was answered also in the chat. So that I think what the question was if there's two Dynacubes and they're sending telemetry data to different environments, how does that work? And it's not the operator that's sending them. So those metrics, the agents know where to send their metrics as well as the active gates. So things kind of work normally. It's just that the namespace selector in the Dynacube object. So the Dynacube is the YAML file that defines your API token and your endpoint. That is what's given to the agent, and so the agent knows where to send its traffic. And so there's no need for a load balancer to take load and decide where it goes. I guess that's more of a router than a load balancer, but so the traffic will go wherever the agent is configured to send it.
Exactly, and the agent. So if you are new with Dynatrace, I think there's a lot of information about our architecture. The agents sending data to the active gate, and then the active gate to the clusters. And we obviously have proven over the years that we scale pretty well, and that we have thought about any architectural constraints here. Awesome. Hopefully these questions were answered. Henrik, in the meantime.
If you want, in the meantime, I want to show stuff. Okay, come on.
Yeah.
I just lost a lot of sweat just during this complicated exercise.
Probably because you're wearing a winter sweater and you're in the south of France. I mean, come on. That's root cause detection is easy for that.
So there was 3 questions about logs. So here, because the Epsi shop by having the no limits, obviously it's working now. So it's make our life easier. So here, just to so our cluster is running and everything has been deployed like we did before, but they didn't do much. As you can see that we have all those metrics coming in, and then I can jump into view all the pods. So here, let's go to all the pods to see what we have here in this cluster. And so we have a lot of, let's just focus on the namespace, hip to shop, to see what we have. And as you can see, I have no request and limit. So if I hear no limits has been defined, I can see only the CPU and memory usage. You have a couple of, you can also look at the analysis of your workload. And here I can see all the various workload on that namespace. And you can see that there are a few, this is the pod name, and you can see that there's a service attached to that. So I can go there, and that will bring me to the service screen. So I can then go more on the app side and utilize all the features that you probably are pretty well used to troubleshoot your, also the pure path, the service flow, and many others. So there you can easily bridge from a pure Kubernetes aspect to a more application microservices aspect as well.
And so to recap, just by installing the operator, we have fully instrumented, full stack, the Kubernetes cluster. You had an application running on there before, Hipster Store. And what you just did, you went from, let's say, cluster metrics, cluster information, workloads, deployments, up to the service, which means this is actually an instrument. I think it was a Go.
It's a Go service. It's a
Exactly.
front-end service, exactly.
Front-end service. And if you do probably and this is what I would love to see now, the service flow. If you look at the service flow, right, you can actually see that Dynatrace is truly automatically doing end-to-end distributed tracing of your Hipster Store app. And the only thing you had to do in the beginning is making 3 clicks, getting a command line that you then kubecttled, and that's it.
Yeah, and of course, if you have already pre-installed the operator, make sure to remove it because of
if you do a demo, right? If you do a demo, do it right. But this makes us human too. Right?
So yeah, there was a question about logs a few minutes ago. So if I want to take advantage, I don't have the log v2 in this. So yes, I want to use the log v2. So here I have the log v2 in this environment now that has been just enabled. So I need to generate a few logs. So let me make some traffic here and there. So I can have logs generated by the Hipster shop, and I should have, and then Dynatrace will pick it up automatically. So I thought that log v2 was enabled on that cluster. It was not. So let me go back and refresh, and I normally should see logs coming in a few seconds, which is not the case yet. So I will reshare it once the logs has been arrived, but I don't have to do any effort. Once you install the operator will also collect the logs from your pods and will expose it directly in Dynatrace as well. And by the way, on the Kubernetes screens, there is also some log sections on various of those screens where you can also see the specific logs for a specific pod or for a specific workload. So we can take that example. If I find one, I will show you in a few seconds.
What about the Prometheus metrics?
The Prometheus metrics, that's a great. So I just enabled the service using. So I'm going to re-show you the IDE that I was using here. Where is it? It's down there. So this is the right syntax. Sorry, I made the wrong syntax a few seconds ago. And you can see that with this, that will allow me to select the pod that are, the Nginx ones. And then I have the annotation that are at the top here, metrics, port, and of course I want to scrap it. If if you have any SSL involved in your cluster, there are specific annotation for SSL. So keep in mind that if you're using SSL in the cluster, make sure to also add the right annotation for the SSL, and that will allow you to get the metrics. So once you have the metrics exposed, then you can search for those metrics. So to be honest, I just deployed it. I have no idea if the selector is working fine. So that's again alive. It doesn't seem so. So if you want to search for the metrics, if you have to go back to one of the metrics that is exposed by Nginx, in my case, and take one of those names. So here it's Nginx ingress controller, blah, 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 blah. So I can take one of them and search for it in Dynatrace. So it seems that I have a minor issue in the configuration. So let me check it later on if I found it. No, I don't see it.
The thing is, Henrik, we always need material for the next Ask Me Anything because nobody expected that this is perfect. And that's all good. And you were in an unlikely situation that you ran into a big pothole in the beginning, and that obviously is hard to recover from perfectly.
I'm quite used to the pothole, but that's
at Dynatrace we help people to run software perfectly. We are working on running demos perfectly. Well, this will come later. That's all.
But then we won't have jobs anymore. I mean, it's good. He gets to improve next time. I think Henrik deserves huge props, though.
I think so too.
Yeah, you recovered from the problem. You got things installed. You showed, you got the right things working.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of additional material that we have, right? We have done performance clinics on the YouTube channel. You'll find a lot of information. Henrik's Is It Observable YouTube channel is amazing, covering, and this is, I think, very important from Is It Observable? It's not a Dynatrace educational channel. It is an observability educational channel. You hardly show any Dynatrace. You show the core technology. So Is It Observable on YouTube for those folks that haven't seen it yet?
I think we have one last question that just arrived that we have not answered. So let me drop it. So it's a well-known friend of ours that's been around since several. So it's Yannick. So hi Yannick, by the way. I hope you best wishes for this year. Can you please show me how to add metadata to my Kubernetes namespace, workload, and so on? So this is going to be questions for. Wait, I have another questions coming in as well. So we were going to ask it as well. So maybe I will, Florian or Matt, do you want to answer while I'm resolving my stuff and also try to show that in a live demo as well?
I think my question would be to Yannick, with metadata, do you mean metadata in terms of Dynatrace tags, or do you just mean additional metadata on, I guess, deployment definitions, like metadata that you have in your CODs anyway? Is this where the question goes to? Unless Matt or Florian, because we have a lot of metadata by default, right? I mean, we have.
I would have the same question as you. Yes, I'm not really sure which metadata he's referring to.
I was wondering if it's I'm not sure about this, if it's referring to the default labels or other stuff. I have no idea. But there's another questions, by the way, that's Sergey has asked. So hello, could you please give any details on mutators, which are used in the cloud native full stack mode in Dynacube? So this is a very specific questions. Matt or Florian, do you have the answer for that?
Yeah, so there's the mutation that I described earlier, which changes the init container. It adds an init container so that the agent loads. I don't think there are other mutators. There's validation that's done. But I think that's the one and only mutation that we do. I do think actually what we're adding, it's not there yet, we'll put some enrichment into the pod, but that might be through the same mutation. So enrichment just to give topology and context to metrics, traces, and logs as they're sent to a Dynatrace environment, which is really, this is Dynatrace's advantage, is that you're not just looking at a bunch of metrics, you're looking at metrics in the context of the relationships between different entities. And so in order to stitch those relationships together, we might put a little bit of data inside of the pod itself so that it can be sent along with data. Mm-hmm. So, but I think technically, I don't know if that's the same mutating webhook or a different one. I can find out. I'm easy to find if you want to email me or send me a tweet direct message or something like that. So happy to follow up.
So the related to the labels has been asked or answered by Dan. So thanks Dan as well. So metadata as tags can be included as labels, which are collected automatically. So if you put labels, they should be collected as well. So here I can show.
I shared you a link to the documentation explaining this a little bit. So probably you can share it in the chat.
So just to show here, the labels comes here. There will be all the labels of your pod or your workload will be exposed as properties of your pod or your workload, and then you can utilize it. But let me grab your links and add it as well.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess this also because Yannick followed up with an example. So like system owner or whatever, right? You would put that into your CRDs as a label, and then it will pull in. I think what I just looked in the background is we have obviously certain screens, or in Dynatrace, you will pull the metadata. You can then convert them into tags and then use it for filtering, for access control, and all this. I know in the Kubernetes screens that we have, you can also filter on certain metadata. The question is, will you be able to filter on any custom metadata? That would be probably a follow-up question for me. But
so the link is a bit too long, Florian. I'm sorry. So I need to share my screen. So then, so I'm not able to push it on as a caption. But I will drop it in the chat for everyone, so that everyone has the link.
Mm-hmm.
So here is the link. So if you want to organize Kubernetes deployment by tags, like Florian mentioned, there's a section in our documentation. So have a look at it. That may be very helpful for you. Andy, could you rephrase your question, because I was
no, I was just saying, kind of following up on the whole label and metadata question. I would assume if we talked about the example of system owner, who is the owner of a certain piece of configuration, then the question is how and where in Dynatrace can you use this? Can you use it for filtering, for instance? And if you convert it into a tag, obviously you can then filter for it and you can do access control. My only question was then, as a follow-up, in our cool new screens that we also provide filtering options there. Can we also filter on any custom labels or tags, like in the Kubernetes screens?
Okay, then go back to this screen. Florian, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I get it, but so what you can do, you can filter workloads by, I don't know, namespace labels and stuff like that, or you can filter a workload list by workload labels. So in the list screens, we can do that, where you see like a list of all workloads or a list of all namespaces.
Perfect.
I guess that's the question. I hope
that was the question exactly. So, like if you look at the overview of all the workloads, and then you're pulling in additional labels, can you then filter on those? Yeah. And that was kind of the question. Yeah. So that means, Yannick, for you can then, let's say, give me all of the workloads that belong to owner Yannick. Right. That's great. And then Dane, again, thanks for all of your support here on answering questions as well. All of this data can then be converted into tags, and then you can use it for access control, like using it in management zones.
Exactly. This makes this also a lot easier. So if you set up your management zone for system owner or something like that, you would have all the list screens pre-filtered to just this label. So you don't need to use the filter bar every time. So that's what we recommend to do, yes.
Perfect. Henrik, I think we get about 30 seconds left for the inaugural Ask Me Anything.
We have 30 seconds left, so I think we will close this first live stream. So lesson learned. First of all, make sure that your demo is going to work. Don't improvise. So it's the same thing in production. Don't improvise in production. Utilize Dynatrace to show you. So I didn't install Dynatrace on me today, so I was not aware that my demo is going to be clunky like this. I'm sorry about that, but that's the beauty of live. I hope that you enjoyed, and of course, all the content will be accessible because it's been recorded, so you can look at all my mistakes that I did on the beginning, and send me some jokes if you want to tease me, for sure. All right, so thanks everyone for this time. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Florian, to join. That was great. It was fun. And I will say bye to everyone and see you soon for another Ask Me Anything. All right. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.